I was showing Martinez how to fix the conveyor jam when Daniel Cross's voice cut through the warehouse like a chainsaw. Brennan, not a question. A summons. I looked up from the hydraulic line I'd been checking. Martinez, one of our newer guys, froze mid-reach. Daniel stood in the doorway, backlit by morning sun streaming through the loading dock. His suit probably cost what my truck was worth. The crew around me went quiet. You could feel the air change. "Yeah?" I said, wiping grease off my hands. "A word. Now." "I'm Carter Brennan, 53 years old. Been with this company 32 years, since I was 21 and fresh out of the Marines. 2 tours, Afghanistan, then Iraq. I learned more about leadership in 6 months over there than most guys learn in 20 years of board meetings. You lead from the front, you eat last, you never ask someone to do what you wouldn't do yourself. My father understood that. He built this place from nothing. Started in 1978 with 1 warehouse and a dream. By the time I got back stateside in '92, he had 3 facilities and was looking at a 4th. He put me to work in the warehouse, loading trucks. Told me if I wanted to run the company someday, I needed to know it from the ground up. Daniel Cross became CEO 6 weeks ago. This was the first time he'd spoken directly to me. I followed him into the glass-walled conference room off the main floor. He didn't ask me to sit, just planted himself at the head of the table like he owned the place, which, technically, he thought he did. "Let's not waste time," he said, loud enough for people walking by to hear. "Your position here is redundant. You're dead weight on payroll." The words hung there. Outside the glass, silhouettes slowed down. The office grapevine was about to catch fire. I kept my face neutral. "I see. Pack your desk. Security will escort you out within the hour. No warning, no discussion. Just public humiliation dressed up as executive decision-making. The kind of move guys like Daniel think shows strength. Really just shows they've never had to earn respect the hard way." He expected anger, maybe begging. Instead, I nodded once. Understood. That threw him. Just a fraction. "That's it?" "That's it." What Daniel Cross didn't know, what nobody in this building knew, was that 3 weeks ago I'd signed documents making me the majority owner of this company, 68% of voting shares to be exact. My Aunt Louise, my father's sister, had inherited a controlling stake when Dad passed 5 years back. She'd held on to it quietly, managing from a distance. But 6 months ago, when the board announced Daniel as the new CEO, she called me. "Your father built something good," she'd said. "This man's going to destroy it. Are you ready to do something about it?" I thought about it for maybe 10 seconds. "Yes, ma'am." 3 weeks ago, I sat in Walter Dixon's law office. Walt's been handling family business for 25 years. We play golf every other Saturday. He's the kind of lawyer who doesn't talk much but gets things done. Had documents stacked on his desk, each page heavy with legal seals. "Once you sign here," Walt said, tapping the final page, "the transfer is complete. 68%. Full control. And this won't trigger any public filings yet? Airtight. Structured through a private trust. The board won't know until you tell them." The pen felt heavier than it should have. 1 signature. Everything changed. I thought about my father. I was maybe 12 when he took me to the first warehouse. It was a Saturday. We were supposed to go fishing, but he said he needed to check on something first. We ended up staying all day. He showed me every part of the operation, introduced me to every single employee by name. On the drive home, he said something I never forgot. "Carter, you see those men back there? They're not just workers. They're the company. You know a man by his handshake and his word. Remember that. A company is built by hands, not by suits." I was young enough that I didn't fully understand, but I remembered. Now sitting in Walt's office with that pen in my hand, I understood perfectly. I signed. Walt slid the documents into a locked leather folder. "Congratulations, you now control the company your father built." "I don't want to control it," I said. "I want to fix it." Now, standing in that conference room while Daniel announced my termination like he'd won a war, I understood what my father meant. You don't win by shouting. You win by building something that lasts. I went back to my desk without a word. My team, well, former team, pretended to work. But I caught the glances, the whispered questions behind hands. I packed slowly. The coffee mug from the warehouse crew's Secret Santa 3 years back. The small cactus that somehow survived on my desk. A framed photo of Dad and me at the ribbon cutting for our second facility. Both of us squinting into the sun, proud for reasons I couldn't have named then. Security arrived. 2 guys I'd known for years. They looked embarrassed. "Sorry, Carter," one of them muttered. "Just doing your job, Mike," I said. No hard feelings. As they walked me to the elevator, I caught my reflection in the glass. Calm. Steady. And if you looked close, maybe the hint of a smile. The next shareholders meeting was scheduled for next Thursday, and I wouldn't be attending as an employee. That evening, I sat in my living room with Walt's leather folder on the coffee table. 68%. I ran my fingers over the embossed seal. My phone buzzed. 2 missed calls from HR. 1 email marked urgent. Exit interview mandatory tomorrow at 10. I poured myself 2 fingers of bourbon and set the phone face down. Let them wonder. Instead of dealing with HR, I opened my laptop and typed a message to Walt. "We move next Thursday. Prepare the formal notice." His reply came back in under a minute. "Understood. Expect pushback once it's served." Pushback was exactly what I wanted. I didn't go near the office that week. Instead, I spent my time gathering ammunition. Not the dramatic kind, just facts, numbers, the boring corporate evidence that boards can't ignore when it's stacked right in front of them. First stop was Raymond Aldrich. Ray and I go back to basic training at Paris Island, 1989. He got out a year before I did, came home, worked construction for a while. When I joined the company, I brought him in 10 years ago to run logistics. He's the kind of guy you want in your corner when things go sideways. We met at Murphy's Diner, 3 blocks from the office. Old school place, red vinyl booths, coffee that could strip paint. Ray slid into the booth across from me. "What the hell happened?" "Daniel's strutting around like he won the lottery." "He thinks he did," I said. "I'm letting him enjoy it before reality hits." Ray leaned in, lowering his voice. "Carter, what are you planning?" "Nothing illegal, but I need information. Real numbers, the ones Daniel's not showing the board." His expression shifted. Understanding dawned. "You mean the actual turnover figures, the cost overruns, the projects bleeding money, all of it, and proof that his projections are fiction?" Ray studied me for a long moment. We'd been in bad spots before. Iraq, 2003. Our convoy got hit outside Fallujah. Ray took shrapnel in his leg, pulling me behind cover. "You don't forget that kind of thing." "Give me a couple days," he said finally. "This could blow back on you." He shrugged. "This used to be a place worth working for. If you can bring that back, it's worth the risk." We shook hands. His grip was still strong. Next, I called David Chen. He'd been our HR director until he resigned 6 months ago, right around the time Daniel came on board. David's old school, 52, father of 3, grandfather of 1. He'd rather quit than compromise his principles. We met at a wine bar downtown that evening. Quiet place. David arrived in a polo shirt and khakis, looked more relaxed than I'd seen him in years. "I heard Daniel fired you," he said, settling into his chair. "He did, in front of half the office." David shook his head. "That man has no concept of dignity. Or process. That's actually why I wanted to talk. I need to know how many complaints HR buried under his watch." David's jaw tightened. "Plenty. I left because they wouldn't let me investigate 2 harassment cases properly. Both swept away. Orders from the top." He paused. "If you're serious about fixing this, I kept copies. For my own protection. I'm serious, and I need them." "What are you planning, Carter?" I took a breath. "I'm taking the company back. But I need evidence that stands on its own. No spin. Just facts." David nodded slowly. "I can get you the files. But you need to understand, some of what you'll see is ugly. People got hurt because the right thing wasn't done. That's exactly why this matters." He reached into his bag and pulled out a thumb drive. I came prepared, just in case. By Friday, I had more than I'd hoped for. Ray sent me a spreadsheet showing voluntary turnover had spiked 38% in Daniel's first quarter. Engineers leaving, warehouse supervisors quitting, people with 10, 15 years walking away. David's files were worse. Detailed complaints, harassment allegations, safety violations, all closed without proper investigation. Daniel's signature on the closure forms. Then there were the email chains Ray had pulled from the server, Daniel and the CFO discussing how to massage quarterly numbers. Creative accounting, they called it. My father would have called it lying. None of it was sensational. It was worse than that. It was boring, undeniable corporate malpractice, the kind that makes board members nervous about liability. That weekend, I didn't celebrate. I worked, organized everything into a binder with tabs, finance, HR, operations, projections versus reality. Every number backed by a source, every complaint documented with dates and signatures. Walt called late Sunday evening. I've prepared the notice. Once you sign, it goes by courier to each board member. Special meeting to review executive leadership. Send it Monday morning. They'll call you the second they get it. I'm counting on it. Monday at 9, my phone started buzzing. Unknown numbers. Texts from board members I barely knew. Patrick Redmond, the senior guy, left a voicemail that was half confusion, half panic. "Carter, what is this? Is this some kind of mistake?" I didn't reply to any of them. Silence was part of the plan. The less they knew before Thursday, the more off balance they'd be. Tuesday, I met with Caroline Webb. She runs a governance consulting firm. Big corporate clients. When boards have problems they can't handle internally, they call Caroline. I'd worked with her 2 years ago on a compliance audit, sharp as they come. She arrived at the hotel lounge with her leather briefcase, hair pulled back, all business. "Walt gave me the overview," she said. "I need details." I slid the binder across the table. "Everything in here is verified. I'm not interested in smearing Daniel. I want a factual case that stands on its own." Caroline spent 20 minutes flipping through pages. Didn't say a word, just read, occasionally making notes. Finally, she looked up. "You've got more than enough. This isn't just bad leadership. It's fiduciary negligence. If the board ignores this, they're exposed legally. That's the point. They can't wave it away. Thursday's going to be ugly. You ready?" I thought about my father, about the men and women who'd built this company with their hands, about Martinez, learning to fix that conveyor because nobody above him cared enough to teach him properly anymore. I've been ready since the day he fired me. Wednesday afternoon, Ray texted, "Daniel's on edge, canceled meetings, locked in his office. Something's coming." I typed back, "Thursday." That night, Ray and I met one more time, same diner. He slid a USB drive across the table. "Server logs for Q2 reports," he said quietly. "You'll see what we actually made compared to the fantasy numbers Daniel fed the board." I didn't need to look to know it would be damning. "Why are you doing this, Ray?" He looked at his coffee. "Remember Fallujah? Every day. You told me something that night, after we got back to base. You said good leaders don't let their people get killed for nothing. They make sure the mission matters." He looked up. "This matters." I pocketed the drive. "Thank you. Make it count." Thursday morning, I woke up at 5, couldn't sleep anyway, made coffee, put on my charcoal gray suit, white shirt, navy tie, my father's Omega Seamaster on my wrist, same watch he wore the day he opened the first warehouse. Walt texted at 7. "They're gathering early, storm's coming." "Good, let it come." Walt met me in the lobby at 8:30. "They're all here, been talking since 8. "Good, let them talk." We took the elevator up. Neither of us said anything. Didn't need to. Walt's been doing this long enough to know when silence says more than words. When we entered the boardroom, conversation stopped dead. The long oak table gleamed under recessed lighting, every chair filled. Daniel sat at the far end, posture stiff, jaw tight. He looked like a man trying to convince himself he still had control. "Well," he said, tone almost mocking, "this is unexpected." I placed my folder on the table and sat at the head without asking. You could feel the room shift. "This meeting was called under the authority of the majority shareholder," I began. Patrick Redmond cleared his throat. "He's been on the board since my father's time." "Good man. Fair. Majority shareholder?" "Carter, what are you talking about?" I slid the ownership documents forward. 3 weeks before my termination, I finalized the purchase of 68% of this company's voting shares. Private transfer, legally binding, filed in accordance with governance protocols. Dead silence. A few board members leaned forward to read the documents. Laura Fields, one of the newer members, went pale. Daniel leaned forward. "You can't be serious." "I am." And I called this meeting to review current executive leadership. I opened the binder, slid the first packet to the board secretary. These are actual Q2 revenue numbers, pulled directly from internal server logs. They don't match the figures in the last board report. The secretary glanced at the page, then looked sharply at Daniel. Accounting variances, Daniel said quickly. Normal reconciliation issues. 51% variance? I kept my voice level. If that's normal, we're in worse shape than I thought. Patrick frowned, flipping through pages. Daniel, this is significant. It's a timing issue. Nothing more. I didn't argue. Just passed out the second set. HR complaint summaries. Formal employee complaints filed in the last 9 months. None investigated according to company policy. Laura looked up from her packet, eyes wide. These are serious allegations. Why weren't we informed? Because they were buried, I said, looking directly at Daniel. You signed off on at least 2 closures personally. Your signature is on the forms. Page 12. Papers rustled. Daniel shifted in his seat. The confident smirk was gone now. I distributed the final packet. Projections versus reality. Side-by-side comparisons of Daniel's growth projections versus actual performance. Revenue flat. Market share down 2 points last quarter. Employee turnover in key departments up 38%. I paused. Executive bonuses increased 22%. The only sound was pages turning. Patrick finally spoke, voice low and hard. Daniel, this is very troubling. Daniel's hands gripped the table edge. This is a personal vendetta. He's twisting numbers to... I'm presenting facts, I said calmly. The board's duty is to act in the best interest of the company and its shareholders. I'm the majority shareholder. This motion doesn't require a second vote. The words landed heavy. I picked up the final sheet. Formal motion to remove Daniel Cross as CEO effective immediately. As majority shareholder, I cast my vote in favor, 68%. Motion carries. Nobody moved. The board secretary cleared his throat. In accordance with company bylaws, the motion stands. Mr. Cross, your termination is effective immediately. Daniel stood abruptly. Chair scraped against wood. This is a mistake. You won't last a month without me. The company will fall apart. I closed the binder. We'll manage. He grabbed his briefcase, avoiding everyone's eyes. At the door, he turned back one last time. You have no idea what you're doing. I met his gaze steady. I know exactly what I'm doing. The door shut. Final. Laura broke the silence. That was unexpected. Patrick looked at me over his reading glasses. Carter, I'll be honest. I didn't know you had this kind of leverage. But if even half this data is accurate, the board had no choice. It's all accurate, I said. Every number sourced. Every complaint documented. The meeting shifted to procedure. We needed an interim CEO. I suggested Neil Hutchinson, head of engineering. Quiet guy, brilliant, been with us 15 years, zero interest in politics. Temporary only, Neil said when we called him in. And we need a real plan for the next 4 months. Exactly the kind of condition I wanted to hear. By the time we walked out, it was early afternoon. The lobby felt different, lighter somehow. I didn't take the corner office, not yet. Instead, I asked facilities to open the main floor conference room. Town hall in 30 minutes, I told reception. Everyone, floor staff, interns, contractors, night shift if they're still here. Nobody excluded. When people started filing in, they moved carefully, like they weren't sure if this was mandatory or dangerous. I stood at the front. No microphone, no PowerPoint, just me and a glass of water. Some of you know me, I began. Some of you saw me escorted out last week. Both things are true. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. I'm not here to make a speech. I'm here to tell you what happened and what happens next. Today, the board removed the CEO, effective immediately. We have interim leadership for 120 days. During that time, executive bonuses are frozen. We're hiring an independent firm to audit the last 3 quarters. Every HR complaint closed in the past year will be reviewed, properly this time. We'll publish the outcomes internally. No names, but real actions. Heads lifted. People stopped looking at their phones. If you filed a complaint and felt ignored, someone will contact you. If you left because you were pushed out or overlooked, expect a call if we need you back. This won't fix everything overnight. But it starts today. I gave them the details. New ethics line routed to external auditors, not internal HR. Email address monitored by Walt and 2 outside counsel. Whistleblower protections in writing. Not flashy, just infrastructure. At the end, I said what I'd promised myself I'd only say if I'd earned the right. Last week, I was called dead weight on payroll. I want you to know what payroll means to me. It means names, not numbers. If we can't say your name and describe what you do well, we don't deserve your work. Silence first, then applause. Not loud, not performative, just enough to know people heard the difference between performance and commitment. After they filed out, Ray found me near the back. "You did good." "It's a start," I said. "Long way to go." "Yeah," he said, "but it's the right direction." That night, I drove home past the old warehouse, the one where Dad cut the ribbon in '78. Lights were on, second shift running. I thought about what he'd said that Saturday when I was 12, about knowing men by their handshakes and their word. Daniel never understood that. He thought power came from titles and corner offices. My father knew better. Power comes from the people who show up every day and do the work. I was just getting started making sure they knew that mattered. The next weeks were unglamorous. Real work never is. We canceled a ridiculous executive retreat Daniel had booked at some mountain resort. 3 days, all expenses paid, for 20 senior managers to talk about synergy and optimization. The deposit alone was $60,000. That money went straight to paying back-owed overtime to the warehouse team. Turned out Daniel's pilot scheduling program had been miscalculating hours for 6 months. We shut down 2 vanity marketing projects, a rebrand nobody asked for, and a social media campaign that made no sense, and redeployed those budgets to hiring 3 support engineers the operations team had been begging for. When the audit firm asked for access, we gave them everything, every server, every folder, every inbox under legal hold. If you find something that makes me look bad, I told them on record, include it. The lead auditor, a woman named Sarah Chen, looked surprised. Most executives don't say that. Most executives are more worried about looking good than being good. During those first weeks, I kept my desk on the 3rd floor, just a normal workstation I'd borrowed. The corner office could wait. I needed to be where the work happened, not above it. Ray stopped by one afternoon, looked at my monitor, then at me. "You're really doing it. Slowly. The only kind that lasts." He grinned. "You going to put that on a coffee mug?" "No. I'm going to put it in action." One night, about 3 weeks in, I couldn't sleep. Happens sometimes. Old Marine habits. I got in my truck around 11 and drove to the main warehouse. Night shift was in full swing. The 3rd shift supervisor, a guy named Tommy Reeves, looked surprised when I walked in. "Mr. Brennan, everything okay?" "It's Carter." And yeah, just couldn't sleep. Thought I'd see how things are running. I spent 2 hours walking the floor, talked to guys on the loading dock, checked inventory systems, watched the new conveyor system Ray's team had been installing. That's when I noticed it. One of the safety rails on the mezzanine level was loose. Not broken, but loose enough that someone leaning on it wrong could go over. 12-foot drop to concrete. "How long has this been like this?" I asked Tommy. He looked uncomfortable. "Couple months? We filed a maintenance request, never got addressed. I pulled out my phone and took pictures. Then I called facilities management, left a voicemail that if it wasn't fixed by morning, I wanted to know why. It was fixed by 6 a.m., but it made me think. How many other things had been ignored? How many safety issues, equipment problems, staffing gaps had been filed away and forgotten because the guy at the top didn't care? I started making those night visits a regular thing. Once a week, sometimes twice. Not to spy, just to see what actually happened when the suits went home. I learned names. Miguel in maintenance, who'd been with us 18 years. Sarah on the packaging line, putting herself through nursing school. Dennis, the lead forklift operator, who had ideas about warehouse layout that were actually brilliant. They weren't just workers. They were the company. My father had understood that. I was relearning it. Tuesday of the following week, an email went out. HR was reopening cases. Every complaint from the past year would be reviewed by an independent team. David Chen agreed to return, not as an employee but as an external advisor. His job was to rebuild the HR function with clear standards and actual enforcement. I gave him one non-negotiable. Final say on whether cases can be closed without action. Board oversight, but your call. He shook my hand. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for having principles worth trusting. Investors wanted a call. I scheduled it for that Friday. No spin, no sugarcoating. We're restating Q2, I told them plainly. Not because we failed, because we refused to lie. Our path forward is boring. Better retention, better products, realistic targets, silence on the line. Then questions. Tough ones. I answered them honestly. Then something unexpected happened. 2 funds asked about increasing their positions if we hit the new, lower guidance. Turns out reality is investable when you stop pretending. The audit report came back on a Thursday. I read it alone in a conference room with the blinds half drawn. 68 pages. Worse in some places than I'd hoped. Better in others than I'd feared. Financial misstatements, buried complaints, safety violations ignored. But also, and this mattered, no evidence of criminal activity, just negligence, arrogance. The kind of slow organizational rot that happens when leadership forgets what they're there for. We published a summary to all staff the next Monday. Actions already attached. Reimbursements for misallocated expenses. Clawbacks where legally permissible. Training where necessary. Terminations where justified. Names kept private. Remedies made public. I got an email that afternoon from someone I didn't know. Warehouse worker. Subject line, thank you. The message was 3 sentences. I filed a complaint 8 months ago. Nothing happened. Today someone called me. Thank you. I saved that email. Around week 10, I started a new program. Veteran Hiring Initiative. If you'd served, you got priority consideration. Not just a check-the-box thing, real priority. We set up partnerships with transition programs, offered training, matched military experience to actual positions. Within a month, we'd hired 15 veterans. Ray helped interview them. So did I. We looked for the same things we'd valued in the service. Integrity, work ethic, ability to function under pressure. One guy, former Army Sergeant named Marcus Webb, came in for a logistics position. 20 years in. Multiple tours. Looking for something stable for his family. Why'd you leave? I asked him. Didn't leave. Retired. But I'm 42. Can't just sit around. What did you do? Supply chain management. Convoy operations. Logistics under combat conditions. I looked at Ray. Ray looked at me. When can you start? Marcus ended up running our southeastern distribution network within 6 months. Best hire we made all year. On day 120, we gathered the board again. Neil Hutchinson handed back the interim CEO role with obvious relief. Thank God, he said with a grin. I can go back to actually building things instead of sitting in meetings. We voted formally. The board asked me to take the CEO position permanently. I accepted on one condition: performance review after 6 months, conducted by the same outside firm that did the audit. Results shared internally with staff. Patrick Redmond raised his eyebrows. That's unusual. Power is safest, when it expects to be measured. He nodded slowly. Your father would be proud. 6 months later, we did that review. Sarah Chen's firm came back in, interviewed staff at every level, reviewed financials, assessed culture changes. The report was honest, not glowing. Honest. Revenue up 12%. Modest, but real growth. Customer satisfaction scores climbing. On-time delivery improved by 18%. Turnover down to pre-Daniel levels. Actually slightly below. People were staying. Safety incidents down 40%. That mattered more to me than almost anything. Nobody should get hurt coming to work. The veteran hiring program had brought in 23 former service members. Retention rate, 96%. Employee survey results showed significant improvement in trust, communication, and feeling valued. Not perfect, but measurably better. There were criticisms too. Decision-making sometimes too slow. Communication could be clearer. Some middle managers resisting changes. I read every word, took notes, made plans. Then we published the whole thing, unedited. People noticed. You can't fake that kind of transparency. I called another town hall, bigger space this time. The cafeteria was packed. I wore the same charcoal suit from the day Daniel tried to erase me, not for show, because it reminded me that the clothes don't matter, the choices do. 6 months ago, I began. I stood in a boardroom and made some promises. Better leadership, real accountability, actions that match words. Today I'm going to tell you how we did. I walked through the metrics, the good and the bad. Didn't sugarcoat anything. Revenue's up, that's good, but it should be higher, and that's on me and the leadership team to fix. Safety's improved significantly. That's everyone's win. Turnover is down because we're finally treating people like people, not line items on a spreadsheet. I paused, looking around the room. Faces I knew now, names I could match to jobs and families and aspirations. My father used to say a company is built by hands, not by suits. I finally understand what he didn't say out loud. The purpose isn't just to make things or earn money. The purpose is to make people better, not smaller. I kept it shorter than last time. These folks had work to do. Leadership isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being accountable when things go wrong and giving credit when they go right. If you want to call what happened here revenge, fine. But the real revenge is choosing to rebuild what someone tried to break. And you did that. Not me, you. The applause was stronger this time. Still not performative, but genuine. Afterward, Lisa Rodriguez from operations found me near the exit. "Do you think Daniel knows?" she asked quietly. "How this all turned out?" I thought about it. I don't know. And I don't need to. That night I finally moved into the corner office. Didn't change much. Same desk, same view, but I replaced the photographs on the walls with images from the floor. The warehouse, the help desk, the production line, real people doing real work. On the credenza, I kept one personal item, the photo of Dad and me at that ribbon cutting. Both of us squinting into the sun, proud for reasons I understand now. I opened the latest quarterly report, revenue continuing to climb, slowly, sustainably, customer retention improving, new contracts signed, profit sharing restored, $2,400 per employee, paid out last month. People could feel it in their paychecks. The kind of growth that lasts because it's built on something solid. Soft knock on the door. "Come in." David Chen stood in the doorway, tablet in hand. "Final update. We've cleared the entire complaint backlog, all cases reviewed, actions taken where warranted. People are starting to trust the process again." "Thank you, David." He hesitated. "You doing okay, Carter?" I looked around the office, at the city beyond the windows, at the company my father built and I'd fought to save. "Yeah," I said. Not triumphant, not vengeful, just steady. "We're okay." When he left, I closed my laptop and let the quiet settle in. The revenge everyone wanted to see, the kind with drama and fireworks, had already happened. That door clicking shut behind Daniel. That was the moment. But what mattered more was every choice after. The boring work of rebuilding, the patient work of earning back trust, the hard work of being accountable. I poured 2 fingers of bourbon. Good stuff, not expensive, just honest. Picked up my phone and dialed. "Aunt Louise? It's Carter." Her voice came through warm and clear. "I was hoping you'd call. How'd the 6-month review go?" "Good. Honest. We published the whole thing. Your father would be so proud of you, sweetheart." I looked at his watch on my wrist. 7:45. I hope so. I'm trying to do right by what he built. You already have. The company isn't just surviving. It's becoming what it was always meant to be. We talked for a while longer, about family, about the future, about the small things that matter more than we realize. When I hung up, I sat in the quiet for a few minutes. Then I locked up and took the stairs down, all 12 floors. By the time I hit the lobby, night shift was clocking in. I knew most of their names now. "Evening, Carter," Miguel from maintenance called out. "Miguel, how's your daughter doing?" His youngest had been in the hospital last month. "Much better. Thanks for asking. Good to hear." Outside, my truck was waiting. 19 years old, 243,000 miles. Ran better than most of the fancy cars in the executive lot. I drove home the long way, past the original warehouse where Dad started it all. The lights were on, second shift running smooth. I thought about that Saturday when I was 12. The fishing trip we never took because he wanted to show me the company instead. How he'd introduced me to every single person by name. How he'd explained that those weren't just workers, they were the company. I'd been too young to understand then. But he'd been patient, knew I'd figure it out eventually. Took me 40 years, but I got there. Tomorrow we'd keep building. Tonight, I'd earned the bourbon and the quiet. I pulled into my driveway, killed the engine, and sat for a moment. The best revenge isn't destroying what hurt you. It's building something better than what was broken. My father taught me that, even if it took me a lifetime to learn it. I grabbed my briefcase and headed inside. Tomorrow, we'd keep building.